Hey guys, Garrett back for Sableye the Mind Sculptor with another standard deck tech. It's been a little while. I decided I was going to focus on Frontier for a bit, and then, I don't know, just got disenfranchised with the format for whatever reason. Stopped wanting to play in Frontier as much, started liking Standard more again now that Felidar Guardian's banned. I really want to mess around a bit. So, I have built a weird rishkar deck. Starting with the lands, we got Forests and Plains. This is a green-white deck, so that's what you need in your basic slot. Then we got Canopy Vista and Fortified Village as our non-basics. Both of these should be entering untapped about 90% of the time. And then a couple of Westvale Abbeys, because this being kind of a tokeny themed deck, we are going to be having enough creatures to flip it. So moving on to our one-drop slot, all we got is Thraben Inspector. This is probably the part of the deck that is the weakest link. We do probably need more one-drops. I just honestly have a really hard time making cuts from this deck, so, it's where we are. Next, we got the 2-drop slot. We have some Cryptolith Rite, which make all your little duders tap for mana. Oath of Ajani to distribute counters, which makes your Oath of Ajani to distribute counters, which makes your Rishkar that much better. Servo Exhibition to put out 2 duders for the price of 1. Rishkar and Servo Exhibition, which puts out 2 duders for the price of 1. Next, we get into the 3-drop slot. Rishkar Pima Renegade is a 2/2 for 3 that, when it enters the battlefield, puts a 1/1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures, and each creature you control with a counter on it has tap, add green to your mana pool. So this basically turns 2 of your dudes into dorks, and if you have a way of distributing counters, a few more of your guys into dorks maybe, and it'll help you ramp into some of the stuff we discussed later on. Harvest Season says search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control, and put them onto the battlefield tapped. So this really synergizes with Rishkar. You tap all your dudes for land, and then just tutor up a whole bunch more lands to end the game with. And then we have 1 copy of Stasis Snare. You'll see later why this is in the deck. I could see mainboarding a little bit more removal, but right now we got 1 copy. Next, we got Benefaction of Ronus. This is just here for a little bit of filtering, helps you find your pieces for when you're looking to win the game. Honestly, I could see cutting this. It made a lot more sense in some of my earlier builds of the deck. One of the big upsides of this card, in my mind, though, is that it helps you find your Cryptolith Rite or your Rishkar, if nothing else. Then we got some Nissa Voices Zendikar, because they put counters on the team, and they also make little duders to help you add mana. Then we got a single copy of Gideon's Intervention. Pretty much just for science. It's in here. I was curious how it works, and honestly, having 1 copy of enchantments is kind of important, as you'll see later on in the deck. So Gideon's Intervention gets in. Oketra the True, because she is very big and efficient, and I assume that we're going to be having at least 3 other creatures most of the time. That's kind of been borne out in testing. Also, her ability is kind of a good mana sink. Once you have a ton of mana, you can just end a turn, create a couple of 1/1s. Saram's Expertise. Of course, this is an amazing card. Going Saram's Expertise straight into an Oath of Ajani feels really good. You just make 3 2/2s, pump up your entire team. Especially with other cards, Saram's Expertise is very good. Honestly, even going Saram's Expertise into Servo Exhibition to make 5 1/1s, that's insane. That's so good, especially if you're holding up a Westvale Abbey or something that you can flip. Saram's Expertise is a ridiculous card. So now we're going to kind of get into our payoffs. This is the 6 and ups slot. Starting with Planar Bridge. You all knew it was here just from the background of this video. Planar Bridge is incredible in my opinion. It's underused. I really do want to see more Planar Bridge decks. You just cast this and then start powering out your bombs a turn. This is really strong. Notably, it says permanent, which means that I can get my Stasis Snare if I really need it. I can get my Gideon's Intervention, notably at instant speed, so I can get this to counter something that's coming down. Not counter it because they've already cast it, but to deal with something that's already coming down. That's what I meant to say. For instance, if they're going to burn you out, you can boop in your Gideon's Intervention and stop that from happening. If they cast a Radiant Flames to wipe your board, in comes Gideon's Intervention, nothing happens. This is a very, very good card to play at instant speed. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger is our main win condition. Indestructible, and starts just exiling things when it attacks. You do not get the cast trigger because you just put it onto the battlefield, but it's very strong regardless. We have a couple of these in case they have a way to deal with one of them. And then we got Gladeheart Cavalry. This is one I'm kind of on the edge about, but as a one-off, it seems good. Support 6 has the potential to make this thing a 12-power creature, although I am not in any delusions that I'm going to have that many creatures out all the time. But what I was really concerned about with this thing was the ability to pop it out at instant speed and gain a bunch of life by blocking against an aggressive deck. You know, block, tap all your guys, put in the Gladeheart Cavalry, trade off with their board with your now 2/2 or 3/3 guys, and then I gain 6 or 8 life. I can only gain even numbers, of course. So Gladeheart Cavalry is really cool for that reason. It really puts you out of range of any of the reach that these decks would have. I don't know if it's amazing. Honestly, the hands where you get it in your opener just feel really weak. Maybe Sandworm Convergence, for instance, could go in over this card. I don't know, though. As a one-off, it seems fine for the just swinging out of their burn range. So now we're moving on to the sideboard. We've got a Quarantine Field because we have a lot of mana to play with. Watchers of the Dead because I feel like Delirium might actually be a thing again, although it's probably not going to be great. I don't know. It's in here in case Delirium likes to come back. Aether Sphere Harvester, which is just good against aggressive decks. You crew it up, gain some life, kill their dude. Honestly, Aether Sphere Harvester is a real house against a lot of these aggressive decks. It just blocks Heart of Kieran for days. A couple of more Gideon Intervention to name the bigger threats that your opponents have. You won't know these game 1, that's why it's in the board. Angel of Invention to pump up the tokens if you feel like that's something you need. Void Winnower against other token decks, or just decks that have a lot of even mana costed things. And then, of course, we got a couple of Appetite for the Unnatural. Deal with artifacts, gain some life. Very good card in general. So, that's been the deck. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.